Welcome to Koffee Talks, a Pokemon card collecting podcast, featuring David Person, owner of the world's most complete English Pokemon card collection, and Dan Norton, a longtime collector with all the knowledge behind the cards.
So Dan, did we do a video yesterday?
We did, first of, hopefully, a daily series of videos.
I appreciate that, Dan. I got to tell you the truth. I didn't want to tell you this soon. I've actually burned myself out. I spoke so fast and about so many things that were bothering me yesterday. I'm completely burned out. I think this could actually be our final video, but I want to say thanks to you for indulging me. You're one heck of a friend, one heck of a partner, and I couldn't be more satisfied with what we've done over the years, okay?
Yeah. I mean, I had an allergy shot today, so I'm burned out as well, and I have no time for your nonsense today, David. Allergy
Fair
shots
enough.
just put me on my butt.
Okay, that's fine. You know what, Dan? You deserve an allergy shot sometimes because, otherwise if I could come right through the computer and bop you on your butt, I would. Dan, we got to go faster today because we too long yesterday, and I want to apologize to everybody. I tried to give Dan the heading, but, kind of the notes to our script yesterday, and I said, just can you keep it short? But when Dan wants to talk, we got to let him talk, and so it did end up going about 28 minutes instead of my hard stop at 15. So I'm going to apologize for what Dan did. He's got good intentions, and let's bear with him as he struggles to find his rhythm in this whole new Koffee Talks realm we're going to do every day, unless I stop doing it. But Dan, thank you. Dan, I have 7,664 days left to live, and so I think I should really get right into it. I'll start out by saying the wife and I are fighting, and I've been sleeping in a different room for the last week or so. So something I found out for all those folks that may be suffering from what I'm going through right now, which is a chronic fatigue kind of thing I'm really struggling with. The other room that I'm sleeping in, it actually has the window shades completely open. And that's so interesting to me because I've never slept with the window shades completely open. Why don't I close them? I don't touch anything when it's not my room. I don't want to mess it up. I just lay in a bed until we stop fighting and I come back to the bedroom a few months from now. And so do you know that the last 3 days that despite my entire fatigued body, I actually wake right up. I get up and I feel tired, but I'm able to get through the fog and get out of bed because of the lights on in the room. Just a revelation. I thought I would point it out to everybody just so you guys could know in case you're going through something similar. On a different note, I'm going to tell you that I realized when I was thinking about it this morning in the shower. Yeah, it doesn't matter. I can't turn it off, Dan. I tried. This is on the computer, okay? So here's the thing, Dan. I realize when I take showers, I think better, especially if I don't wash. So I haven't been washing lately, but I've been doing a lot of thinking in the shower. And I realized that the only thing that's more controversial as a topic than Pokemon these days, other than politics, of course, is pizza restaurants. If you go into your neighborhood app or somewhere in your town and you want to have a fight with your friends about which is the best pizza restaurant in town, you're going to find out very rapidly that you're going to get into a large fight. Everybody loves the pizza that they love. We're deep dish fans over here of a Chicago-based pizza that's in the Vegas area. Okay, Dan, with that, I'm going to move into the actual topics of today. And what I want to talk about is, I guess I apologize for our time yesterday. I want to talk about everybody that doesn't enter sweepstakes or drawings because they don't feel like they have a chance to win. And so that's what's happening right now as we continue on with our theme of last night and the flipping and the scalping and all the rest of it. What's happening is stop it. Just don't do that. That's my kids, and they want money, and they're messaging me, and they don't know that I'm on, and I'm really frustrated. So my apologies. So what's happening is we don't go on. I don't go on to the Pokemon Center anymore because I'm so frustrated. I know it's not going to be a good experience. Sometimes I will, but very, very occasionally because I know I'm not going to get through. And do I want to spend the rest of the day frustrated, like I mentioned yesterday, that everybody is, that they don't get to participate? So we see that in the Pokemon Center. We see that in just different drawings and sweepstakes and things you can enter where you have this infinitesimal chance of winning. And that's how a lot of these Pokemon content creators right now are going on about it. We'll name names later. I told you I wouldn't yesterday, but it's more fun if I name names and I make fun of people. You'll love that. So basically they say, hey, just sign up to the site and you've got a great chance of winning. If I've got a few subscribers, or not such a good chance if I have a lot of subscribers. But ultimately, it's frustrating because you don't win because there's so few people that win, right? There's 4 superior premium collections, whatever they're called, special premium collections going out to 50,000 people. You don't have much of a chance of winning. So here's the thing. I do believe it's costing Pokemon customers. And I do believe that the frustration is there and that people eventually say, well, now how am I even going to get any box of Journey Together? And they're up to $250. But if you get the promo inside, it's $300, et cetera, et cetera. We have to bet on a reprint. If it comes, maybe I'll dip my toe back in the water. Maybe I won't. The comments from you guys were great yesterday. Please leave more. Some of the folks said, you know what? Pokemon won't always be this popular. I'm not sure unless they keep. The only reason it wouldn't be is if they keep doing what they're doing and making people unhappy. I don't see why it would go down in popularity if they can straighten out the issues. And then some people said, you know what? They're more willing and able to tolerate the ups and downs just because they've always done it. I've always felt like I had to do that more of an obligation because Dan and I are trying to put together the premium and most comprehensive collection of English language Pokemon cards in the world. So I don't have a lot of choice in participating, but I do think it really is frustrating a lot of people, and you hear the anger in their voices when it comes out. So here's my hot take for today. Okay. Again, going fast, going to get through this one faster, I promise. My hot take is, who's going to do something about this? If you're the folks that are out there complaining and you're lambasting everybody, and somebody put in the comments last night, you know what? People told me to go hang myself. I mean, because I was trying to sell a box, or I bought a box at 100, was asking 150 or something. And he or she said, you know what? That's ridiculous. How does that make anybody feel good? If you're one of the folks that's out there complaining, or you know folks are complaining, what are we going to do about it? Okay, I've got all these content creators talking about, here's what we should do. They don't say what you do. They're talking about what the problem is: distribution, the vendors, the Pokemon printing supply, whatever. Well, I went back to what I said to Dan last night about the way that they get involved, the company, in allocating badges for entry into the Pokemon World Championships. And Dan will tell us in a moment how many people come to the World Championships. I know it's always determined by the venue and the capacity that can be held there. Number of players, etc. You get one guest or two guests, whatever. But they go through a lengthy process to try to let people submit for a level of interest, and then they eventually go through some kind of lottery system to select them. So we know they have the capability. Whether or not that's the actual same arm of the company doing it, I don't know, nor do I care. But we know that capability exists. Now let's talk about Doge. You guys know I'm not going to talk politics on this channel whatsoever, but I'm going to talk about the Department of Government Efficiency. And we know that it's run by a bunch of folks that are between 19 and 25 years old. So where are those people? Well, I know a bunch of them are on my and Dan's favorite platform called E4. And so E4 is a forum out there that, I'm not going to get into this. You can watch your old videos, but stole a lot of Dan's information and then went on their business. And what's happened there is they've got the Doge people working for them. And what they're doing is they went out there and they found out that these playtest cards, you guys will know little bits and pieces, we'll talk more about it, that were coming out of Japan recently were not originals. They were built and printed on dot matrix printers that they could decipher the dates from. These brilliant people on E4, the admins and stuff, and they found out, along with other people, that they were printed into sometime in 2024. They were not real, and that's a whole controversy going on for another day in time. Well, can't we come together as a community and figure out a way to put a petition together, to have everybody sign something, to put Google Forms, to have a website, to come up with ways that Pokemon can do a lottery system? And instead of the bots infiltrating and everybody's so frustrated while they waited their 45 minutes to get on and they saw that somebody with 150 bots got 150 orders or 50 orders or 15 orders while you didn't get any, can't we figure out a way to come up with a plan to help the Pokemon card company with this, actually do something? And we could communicate it. And here's my thought on this, okay? My hot take. My hot take. Because some people say, oh, this is all deliberate. This is another content creator said this is all deliberate by Pokemon. No, he didn't say that. Let me be fair. He said, what if this is a deliberate plan and they plan this out for 3 or 4 years to keep demand high? Not the case. They're not that, they don't have enough foresight and thoughtfulness around this for that to be the case. But right now, we talk about boxes that come out to distributors or whatever at $80 a box, $90 a box. I don't care. They don't even get to the markets. If you see them at 100, 140, 150, you'd be lucky. Now they're jumping because of all the middle people and whatever to $100 to $200 or whatever. So what if Pokemon said, we're going to sell these for higher at the onset? Instead of $100, $80, $90 a box, we're going to build in $10 a box, and we're going to hire some more staff. We're going to put that towards administrative costs to do the support, the technology, the people, and whatever, to actually have this allocated in a way that was fair to the hobby, to basically rebrand it as something that's hobby focused and collector focused instead of we're just printing cards and getting them out there. If they can print enough cards, then none of this matters, I suppose. But folks are arguing they can't print enough cards, or they're unwilling to print enough cards, or there's so many new sets coming invariably every single year that they can't go back in time to do enough reprints, that this may not be the issue, that they can outprint the demand facet of what's going on. So where are our Doge, people that can get into stuff and tell me that a 2024, I'm joking with the Doge thing, guys, that they can tell me that a dot matrix printer printed this, and that's a fairly sophisticated level of ingenuity, that we can't come up with something that we could put hundreds, thousands, if not hundreds of thousands people on a name through every Facebook in the country and come up with a way to submit something that says, we as a community are not happy about this. All right. Dan, let me pause there. That's 10 minutes. Just your thoughts on that before I kind of go to a couple of closing things.
Well, the biggest thing that you mentioned is you said it's a different arm of the company, and that's just where it is. The lottery for Pokemon Worlds is run by the Play Pokemon team, and all of the rest of it is done by a selling team. Play Pokemon and the tournament scene doesn't make money. The tournament scene gives out money, it gives out prizes. For the World Championships, it's free entry for the players. Yes, they sell these spectator badges, but we know that there's no way that covers the costs that it costs them to put the event on. And players that, when they pay into regionals, like we know from people who've run regionals before, they're barely covering costs with that. The Play Pokemon and the tournament scene side of the company exists purely as advertising to allow the selling side of the company to sell their cards. And that's why the tournament side of things has to be so much more focused on customer satisfaction, basically, is because they're an advertising model. Whereas the side of the company that is just selling these cards, they don't care as long as they're selling their cards. And you talk about it costing customers, but they're selling out of these products. They don't care who they're selling it to if the product is selling out. The only way that it would actually affect them and cause that side of the company to look at things is if products weren't selling out. But because the people who are not satisfied are the people who can't buy them, because these other people are buying them, that's never going to happen, because the people who buy lots to resell, flip, whatever, they would just buy more if people tried to, boycott the Pokemon Center and not buy it. So there isn't really a way, I don't think, to make this change or to let Pokemon know about dissatisfaction, because, again, the only point of contact most people have with TPCI is, again, through that tournament side, because they get to meet people at the event, so they get to know their judges who can pass stuff up. But that is not the side that gets to make these decisions. I know we've both personally spoken to Dave Schwimmer many times over the years. He's the head of basically the organized play system for Pokemon for TPCI. And he's told both of us a long list of things that he would love to do for the community or do for the players if he was allowed, or if they would sign off on funding for it. And they just won't, because ultimately the TPCI is a profit-making company, and as long as profits are going up, they're not seeing a reason to make changes.
So I don't disagree with you. Everything you say makes a lot of sense. I mean, I will say that when you talk about the world side making, or the tournament side, being more of an advertising piece of it, I'm not necessarily speaking so much about, the advertising pieces. I'm speaking about the fact that they've got some way to run a lottery system. I think a lot of people are not satisfied with it because it's too much money, that they're going to charge you $100 for a 3-day pass or a 1-day pass or something crazy, whatever it is. I still think it doesn't have to be that much money, but I guess if you're trying to generate money to pay for the tournament and the venue and all the rest of it, I understand. I'm more talking about
I'll just jump in there, Dave, and say that from what I've heard, it seems like the $100 is more to make sure that the people who are paying are people who actually want to be there, and not people who are, as of over the past few years, there are people who are getting passes just to try and get autographs from the creators who are there so they can go and sell the posters, or people who were...
Dan, you're making my
Yep.
point right now, buddy. I hear what you're saying. You're actually making my point and the point of the entire community. You're not even realizing it, because you know what? Trying to make sure the right people are there is exactly what everybody wants to do in the Pokemon card community right now. Instead of having all these scalpers come out and buy an entire pallet of stuff from Costco and immediately walk out the door and sell it for double and triple the price. So I just think that all we've got to do is have an alignment of interests. And and again, if this were self-funding in the sense that you charge $5 or $10 more a box, there isn't a single person in the country that's going to care, because they're talking about paying $5 or $10 more a box for it to set up an entire infrastructure such that you would end up far outweighing the fact that you would have to pay double the price down the road. So all I'm saying is things start with an idea. And if there were some kind of petition, if there was something put forth, I would have no problem taking that to the heads at Pokemon and talking about it and seeing if it could be generating revenue in a such that in a way that might be beneficial and allow for them to have the resources to do this. I just think if people are not going to come up with other ideas, I don't care. Let me see your ideas in the comments. I'm glad to hear it. I don't know everything or anything, but I think that we can't say it's not going to happen or it shouldn't happen or it can't happen. We have to talk about a way of making things a little bit different and seeing if we can come up with ways as a community to do it. So there's not a lot of people frustrated, because I don't think all the publicity is great when it becomes down to the fighting and the bickering and all the rest of it. And maybe at some point Pokemon picks up on that. There's the old movie called the Wall Street Movie that said greed is good, and the idea behind this is that, if you can bring entrepreneurship and you can bring all your great innovations to business, then greed is good because it allows for more productive kind of practices. But in our particular instance with Pokemon right now, greed is not good because no one's innovating around that. No one's taking that extremism and that need and that desire for greed and turning it into something positive. And that's the difference here between that concept in the movie of innovation and the concept here of stagnation. There's nothing going on to make anything better right now, unless we're not aware of it behind the scenes. And boy, from the comments and everything else that's out there and the continuing content creation around how dissatisfied people are, it's really frustrating. Okay, so I have nothing more to say, and I'm at 16 minutes. Dan, I want you to talk for a second about anything, finish up on what I said, and then I'm gonna comment quickly on the post I put out on social media today.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree that it would be great if something did happen. I just think that the culture of business, especially within the US, is so profit based that I don't know if they would even entertain anything of we should make a change when we're already selling out of everything. So if a petition happens and something changes, great. I just wouldn't be holding my breath for it. And also, I will say, in terms of the world's ticket pricing, like, yeah, it's good that they're trying to make sure that people want to go. In terms of $100 for the weekend, I go to a lot of conventions. $100 a ticket for what is essentially now a convention is not a lot of money. Like, if you think back to the old Worlds, like when we used to go to Worlds where, yeah, it was free entry, there was the tournament, there was a tiny little room that was the Pokemon Center. The last couple of years, I know you've missed them, David, but in London, in Tokyo, in Yokohama, and in Hawaii, the Pokemon Center alone was bigger than some entire Worlds that we've been to. And especially the last couple of years, they've really
I know,
put
like
so
you said,
much
you alluded to
into
last night.
Yeah, they've really put so much into having so much more to do than just Worlds. Like the last one we went to, there was a mini museum where they showed off like all of the old Worlds plush. They had the video game consoles from every generation showing off which games were on which console. They had all of the old Worlds merch. There was like panels and interviews and like talks by people behind the scenes. I know it was at EUIC. They had Yukamori, who's the artist who does all of the clay Pokemon figures. You'll have seen some of the cards where it's a photograph of a clay Pokemon figure. They had Yukamori there, and they brought some of the original clay figures that were made for these cards. They're really expanding into a lot of this stuff where it's not just a tournament, it is a convention, and $100 for a weekend pass to a convention is not an absurd amount of money. That's about what I would consider the average price for entering a convention, even possibly on the low side.
Okay, Dan, I love you, and I'll always love you, but I'm not in love with you. And so what I'm going to say to that is I don't give a hill of beans about what you just said. That speech made me even more upset than, and I don't even want to finish the video now. I might go right to 28 minutes now because I'm so angry. Because Dan, I don't give a flippin' flike about Worlds. I want to talk about why people can't go to Walmart or Target and buy a pack of cards. So I can go into Worlds and I can go to the venue and I can watch the best players in the place play, or I can pick up some plush, or I can meet people from across the world and country. I know you love it, Dan, but how about everybody that's watching and just wants to buy a box or a pack or a ETB at a reasonable price? Why doesn't Pokemon worry a little bit more about that and people's satisfaction instead of making this wonderful Worlds convention venue with the artists and the claymations and whatever? I'm sick of it. I don't want to hear about it no more. I don't want it to come.
Pokemon are aware of this.
Okay, but I don't want this
Pokemon
to be an
are aware that
elitist
people
hobby.
need. It's not. Pokemon are aware of the issues. Pokemon have put out a statement with the first weekend of Prismatic Evolutions drops, when everything was selling out. Pokemon put out a statement and said there will be reprints coming. They basically said, don't pay these inflated prices. There are going to be more coming to market. They've just announced with distributors, I think it's from Paldea Evolved up to Surging Sparks. There are reprints in the works now. I know Pokemon, it was just a couple of years ago, Pokemon took full control of their printing process. And
Right.
it's a statistic, I believe I think it was 19% of every Pokemon card ever printed was printed in the 23-24 financial year. Like, think of that just as a concept. A fifth of every Pokemon card ever printed was in that financial year. I believe I have that number right. Apologies if I got that wrong. They are upping production, and it's just they're still just chasing because demand is growing faster and faster. But they are increasing production to try and meet that demand. Pokemon is at its base a game. They do not want their product to be so limited that people can't get it. This isn't a sports collectible where everything is in collectible. When you open sports cards, there's no game behind it. The only value in those cards is how rare they are. So that's why in sports, you have the one of ones, the one of fives, the one of tens, all these different rainbow chasers, because they make those products limited because they want people to chase them. They want the collectors to chase them. Pokemon want players playing their game. They want people to be able to go to the store, any local store, and buy packs of the most recent set because they want their players to build decks. They want their players to play the game because that's what keeps them coming back. That's what keeps them interested. That's why they buy the new set. That's why players have to buy the new set on day one because they need those cards for a deck the next weekend. We've talked about this a lot. The difference between collectors and players is collectors can wait. It makes no difference to collectors if they get a set now or in a year's time. Players need them. Players drive the sales of the new set. And Pokemon has no reason to not want players to be able to get as many of these cards as they want. So I think Pokemon do understand the issue, and I think Pokemon are doing what they can to meet the demand and do these reprints and increase production. I think they're just still chasing. I think they're printing more and more cards all the time, and I think we are eventually going to hit a sweet spot where they do catch up to that demand. It is just a case of they're constantly increasing production, and we just need to wait for them to hit that nice peak where everything levels out.
And Dan, I'm going to ask you one more question about that. Then, hopefully, you're frozen on my screen, but hopefully you can hear me. Okay, here you go. So Dan, I was going to suggest to you then, what would you think about them not printing as many sets during a year? So instead of doing 4 or 5 or 4 and then special set or 3 or 4, whatever, we do one less. But then you're going to tell me that it all comes from Japan and it has to stay on the schedule because Japan is always printing so much and we have to follow Japan, etc. Is that correct?
No, I'm not going to tell you that because we absolutely don't follow Japan. Japan does its completely own thing. Japanese sets and English sets are not a one-to-one parallel. Japan does lots of different mini sets. They do, sometimes when they release a set, they'll release it in 2 halves and there's like 2 smaller sets released at the same time. The reason Pokemon does it to the schedule is, again, we look at that other side of the company, the financial side of the company, the side that only cares about selling product, doesn't care about the customer satisfaction. They just want the number to go up into the black more. And they've determined that the most optimal amount of stuff you can release to sell is 4 main sets a year plus 1 or 2 special sets. I'm sure if they figured that people would be willing to buy 8 full sets a year, they would be making the development department release 8 sets a year. They've just hit that spot where they think that is the optimal amount of sets to sell. I mean, personally, I would be fine with 3 main series sets a year and then maybe 1 special set. I know that Star Wars Unlimited has decided to do that. They've bucked the trend that most TCGs have of 4 main series sets a year, and they've only done 3, and they're doing well with it. They've been successful. I just think it's another thing where it's the 2 different halves of the company that only cares about the financials and the side of the company, that cares about customer satisfaction can't gel because they have competing goals.
Yeah, I just think that what would be interesting is if they could go to like a 3 set model, take off 1 set, and then just increase the print run for that specific set or all the sets through the year, which allows more supply and then sort of play catch up later. But everybody would be happy with the amount of product that was coming out there. That's the reason I asked. I appreciate the clarification.
Yeah,
I'm going to get to my last business because if we go over 27 or 28 minutes, then I lied and I'm not going to do it. So one final thing I wanted to cover was that I did a post today and I talked about the EX Dragon set, which was one of the first sets I ever bought in the hobby, back in 2004. And a lot of folks don't really know and are new to us, and hopefully they'll continue the audience to grow. But what Dan and I do when we focus on 12 months out of the year is helping me to build the collection of every English language card that's been out there, that's been issued. And so along with that, if you look in Bulbapedia or something, you're going to see that there's 100 cards in the EX Dragon set. And of course, there's reverse holos in addition to that, which doesn't really list there, but there's 88 of those. That's going to show some variant cards. Well, between the work that Dan and I have done over the years, there's actually 306 total variants, total cards, including variants, reverse holos, et cetera, for the EX Dragon card set. And we'll talk more about this in a subsequent podcast, but I think it's really interesting. Hang around for our journey, hang around for the information, because a lot of what Dan does, specifically in his videos, it's not appreciated enough by the hobby, the collecting hobby, folks that are going to end up going backwards at some time, especially if these newer sets are getting more and more expensive. And you folks want to go back and try to complete really master sets. It really is an intriguing bit of business, and it's very hard to do. It takes a lot of time and effort, and I want to talk you through some of the ways that we do that on an ongoing basis, but that's for another day. So, Dan, your conclusions here?
Yeah, that's a good place to leave it. And yeah, as David said at the start, thank you guys so much for all the feedback that we've had on episode 1. I know some people have suggested some changes and stuff. Those will be implemented, but as we're doing this on a daily basis, I can't get everything implemented in one go. So we will be looking to continue to improve these and stuff over the days we do it. And yeah, hopefully we can stick to most days. I will not say every day because we will inevitably hit stuff where we're both busy, but hopefully we'll hit most days. I have a card show I'm going to tomorrow. I'm not vending, I'm just visiting, so maybe I'll talk about that a bit tomorrow. I'm not all here today because, as I said, I had an allergy shot. I'm about to go fall asleep for 5 hours before I get up at 2 a.m. and edit this. So that is it. That's all I've got to say today. How about you, Dave? Anything else?
We appreciate you guys very much. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Last question for you guys to comment on. What should these be called? Because I called the first one a Koffee Talks Minisode, like mini episode. Law suggested we call them coffee breaks because they're shortened coffee talks. Any other suggestions, drop those in the comments as well, and we'll probably do some branding on that at some point. All right, that's definitely it for this time. Goodbye.
Thanks for listening to Koffee Talks with Dan Norton and David Person, with music by More Than Never and artwork by Lore Norton. A special thanks to all of our Patreon members. Join us again next time.
But they don't want you to.